Okay, well, the first song that I had ever written really was at 4 years old, but I don't know that that's worth talking about. After that, I moved on well past that. And I guess the first song I ever tried my hand at was, it was something that I'm not doing now, but I sort of put it on the back burner to be developed. And it wasn't, I don't even remember the name of it because I don't think I gave it a name, but it was about love, your young love, and something reminiscent of someone I met, a boy in high school. But I never developed that. Maybe one day I'll go back to it. But the one at 4 years old is very memorable because I sang it all the time, and everybody in my family said, please stop singing that song. So then I stopped singing it, probably when I was 8. I sang it for 4 years, so there, drove them crazy. And it was called Chewing Gum. There have been so many influences, especially for a singer. I can't believe a baby boomer singer didn't have, we had such a wide array of singers to be influenced by. There was the jazz singers, Sarah, Ella, Nancy, mainly because of my mother's influence with jazz. She was a chorus girl in the Harlem clubs, and she danced to jazz in the big bands, so I heard all the jazz music I needed to hear through my mom. Through my grandmother, it was all the gospel, Mahalia Jackson, and mostly Mahalia Jackson. Louis Armstrong, my grandmother was a big fan of his. And then, again, being a baby boomer, every decade was impacting to me. James Brown, that whole Motown scene. Diana Ross, everybody affiliated with Motown, Tamla, Stevie Wonder. There wasn't any generation. And I listened to Elton John, I listened to it all. In fact, when my former husband met me, he said, wow, you've got to be the corniest black person I've ever met. Mainly because I was listening to Elton John, and then I moved to Philly, and that was, das ist verboten. But I'm from New York, so, we do things a little differently. But all of that influenced me. I hear everything. I hear songs. In fact, I wrote some that I hope to develop later on. I hear big band. I hear, things that are sort of bebop. I hear pop. I hear R&B. And then of course Roberta Flack was a huge influence in my life. So having worked with her and toured with her for years. So yes, we baby boomers, we've heard a lot of music. Well, the song that's in the real book is called This Moment's Sweetness. What inspired me to write it is that my sister started it in 1971. And she had the basic form of the song. And really, I would say there's such a long gap and there's so much space to fill in from what inspired me musically, because it started really in childhood, but it continued into adolescence. And my sister, being 5 years my senior, she was gifted musically. She was a classically trained pianist, but a singer-songwriter. So she used to write her own songs and use my voice to explore the depths of the song, or how far she could go with the song, or how the song would evolve and sound, because she didn't have the vocal chops. So I would sing all of her music, and years ago when she would write them, she would never finish songs. She would write them and I'd sing everything. And then it wasn't until Mike Boone, a very good friend of mine and amazing jazz bassist, known in Philadelphia, approached me when I was performing at the Art Museum in 2011. And he said, very simply, you have to do a CD, right? And I said, okay, how do I start? And I said, would you produce it? And he said, well, sure. So we talked all of that, we worked it out. And when I was looking for material, there were some standards he was going to derange and do interesting arrangements too that were different, but I wanted something original on it. And so I thought about my sister's song. And I think the reason it came to me is because I was ending a relationship, or I had ended a relationship 3 years prior to that. And the last time I was with that person, I thought, wow, this is how it should end. There's lyrics that say, hold on, I want this moment to last. And it hit me that moment, and I thought, wow, that's a line in my sister's song. And I really hadn't thought of my sister's song for years. But this came bubbling to the surface, and I thought, well, maybe it's time now to finish that song. And so I did. Mike Boone heard it. We worked on it, with the structure. My sister really had it in place. She had the melody already, but I had to finish the lyrics to it. And, and when it was done, I felt really good about it. I thought, yeah, this is the song. But I didn't think of using it as the title of the CD. That was actually another Mike, who was the engineer, Mike Harmon. After we'd had everything complete and everything, we were close to mixing and mastering, and I still didn't know what I was going to call the CD. He said, well, why don't you just call it This Moment's Sweetness? He said, that's the best lyric in this entire CD. So I did, and it really was to honor my sister. And that whole CD was to honor everybody who influenced me musically. Roberta Flack, I'd done a cover of hers, Killing Me Softly. Mike Boone did an arrangement. We did it very bare, very vulnerable, very raw, with just bass and vocal, which I loved, and that turned out very well. So everything that I chose on that CD was inspired by someone who inspired me. Well, the musicians that are joining me this evening are Chris Simonini on.
What? That never happens. 2 in a row?
Wow, it's like lightning striking in the same place. Yeah.
All right, hold on a second.
Start out.
Okay.
The three musicians that I've chosen to join me this evening, Chris Simonini on keys/organ. I met him through Jason Klinke, who I always refer to as my BFF, because I met Jason about 16 years ago. Jason is also joining us on guitar, and then of course Harry Butch Reed on drums. Now, Chris Simonini, he lives in Jersey, but that's not why I chose him for this. One of the songs that we're doing, or the medley of songs that we're doing, was a project that I was commissioned to do at the Free Library in Vine Street. And it was focused on a children's book and a children's author. And the three of them joined me on that project, and that went so well. And I had worked with two of them already. I don't think I'd worked with Harry up until that point, but I always wanted to work with Harry Butch Reed. I've seen him in so many instances with so many vocalists. I love his feeling on drums. No, prior to that, I did work with him in Westchester, but that was the first time that we worked together. And when he plays drums, he has such a percussive sound that it always brings something else out of me that I didn't know was there. So I really love working with Harry for that reason. And plus, he and I did do something at his home in his 2-mic studio, where it was just vocal and percussion. And again, it was just very adventurous, explorative to see, what I would come up with, what I would think of just in an improvised way. So I remembered that moment, and I said, we have to do that again. And then Jason Klinke, as I said, Jason, I actually think of my CD because it was Jason that after my long-term relationship ended, I was in the doldrums. I'd gone to see Jason with a trio that he played with at the time. And I had asked him, no, I think he approached me and said, hey, would you like to get together sometime and, just jam at my house? And I said, yeah, sure. Are you serious? He said, yeah, I'm serious. So I went to Jason's house. We started jamming. We really had a nice connection, a nice flow. And then he brought in Chris Simonini. He introduced me to, because they had been friends for a while. And then the three of us had such a great connection. We'd done many gigs together in Jersey and a few other places, and in Philly. And so I just really liked their interaction with each other. And so I said, that's a team. That's a nice band. I want to keep together and develop it and see what else comes out of it. I am passionate about jazz bridge for a myriad of reasons, and most people who know me will know certainly one of those reasons. But this isn't just an organization that is focused on helping, the infirmed musician, the one whose spirit is broken and can't play their music. We do all of that, but there's also the piece of just the art and having a voice and having an organization that is saying, it is important to us that you use your voice to tell truths, for truth telling. Nowhere else but the arts give you an opportunity to tell the truth, to explain how life is, how it was, how it can be, based on real information, not fake news, but how people really live and how lives really are. And we're so close to that every day when we address a musician's life. which while seemingly simple can be very complex. So I love that this organization provides this opportunity with the Real Book Concert. It's much more important than people realize, and I think they will come to realize it more in years to come, that the opportunity it's opening up for people to use their voice in every way that they use their voice. It's impacting, and you grow from it.